like we see it here today. The subject was catapulted into the headlines by people like the tragic passing of Avicii and Keith Flint from The Prodigy. And only last weekend we saw another young talented female DJ take her own life. This is still a subject that's very raw and very current. So today we're going to be looking at what our industry can do and the different measures that you can look at regardless of what area of the industry you're working in, whether that's as an artist or as a record label. We're honoured to be joined today by a panel of experts who are going to be talking through their experience and sharing some ideas with you to help guide you on your own journey through this very difficult subject. So perhaps, Frank, if we could begin with yourself with some introductions.
Hi, my name is Frank Klein. I'm working as a manager for several artists here in Germany and international. Guys like Robin Schulz, Alpha, Michelle, Barbara, and some more. I'm in this industry for more than 20 years now. I ran record labels. I've been a DJ myself for more than 20 years. I was touring the whole world. And so I know this business from any perspective.
My name is Timo Maus. I'm 25 years professional in this business, also DJ, producer, label owner, and traveled by 100 countries all around the world, been in any kind of level of the business, also from very low to very high, and got a very special experience with the issue of mental health also.
Thank you. Hey guys, my name is JoeySuki. I've been active in this industry for over 10 years. Previously I've been a DJ and music producer, but I've quit because of mental reasons. My story is kind of relatable to Avicii's story, and now I'm active as an artist coach, so I actually help future artists with mental problems. Oh.
Hi, my name is Farah Zayed. I'm originally from England and spent half my life in England and then moved to California when I was 16. I worked in Los Angeles for many, many years at one of the biggest talent agencies in the world, focusing on brand partnerships for music artists. Actually worked on Avicii's team as well. And I then moved to Berlin 2.5 years ago, and I'm now working at Beatport. I'm the marketing manager there and also focusing on a lot of special projects that involve diversity, mental health, and also focusing on our editorial side and a lot of brand partnerships as well.
So thank you for that. Farah, perhaps we can start with you. We often have a lot of attention that's given to the artists looking at their journey through the industry and the difficulties that they go through, and we'll come on to that more in a minute. But you've had experience both in the US and in Europe, and as you touched on there, you've worked for both big agencies and you're now at Beatport. So you've seen a lot of the pressures that exist backstage that different people go through in various different ways. Could you tell us about some of the differences in terms of the US versus Europe, in terms of the stresses that you've been through, and what are some of the biggest challenges you've experienced as an executive?
Yeah, so there's definitely differences between the US and Europe. I feel that when I was in my 20s in the US, I was working non-stop. It was, and this obviously doesn't speak for every company, but yeah, I mean, I was very passionate, very dedicated. I, committed a lot of my early career to focusing on the artists I was working for, the managers, and you sometimes tend to not take lunch breaks, you work overtime, you're encouraged to work overtime. If you don't, you kind of feel guilty for not doing it. So there's a lot of pressure, it's extremely high pressured. So I was kind of always really used to that. And then when I moved to Europe, after agency life, I kind of went into artist management, was kind of more on my own schedule, so that really suited me and gave me a lot of balance. And then moving to Europe, Berlin especially, I think that people are very passionate. They're just as passionate, they're just as driven, but they take more time for themselves. People definitely take lunch breaks. They take the time to have a life and end at 7 o'clock. I think working from home is something that's very supported in Europe. That's not necessarily the case in the US. So things like that give you a really good balance. So in my 30s, I've definitely found balance in my career. I know when to kind of put away the laptop. So I think that's really important. And I'm sorry, your second question?
It was really about what are some of the biggest lessons you've learned that others might benefit from?
The biggest things I've learned just really to make sure that you do know when to shut off. I think that's really, really important. I learned that a lot later in my career. I wish I'd learned it a lot sooner, but at least I learned the lesson either way. And I think just to make sure that you know how to delegate work properly and know how to say no in certain situations and ask for help if you need the help. Most people are more supportive than you would think.
Right, so, and you're quite senior now, but what about when you're sort of coming up through the ranks? How do you push back and say no there where you're in difficult situations?
Yeah, I mean, that's definitely tricky. I mean, in my 20s, I had a really, really great boss. He was one of my first mentors. So I'm very, very fortunate. We worked with a lot of great artists. So I think a lot of the times I actually wanted to do a lot of the work, and I was kind of working as like a mini agent in a way. But I think you just have to I think now more than ever, like 10 years ago it was hard to have that conversation. I think now you can really say, I need the time for myself, it's affecting my mental health, I don't want to work overtime, I don't want to do this. You just have to set your boundaries, I think, with your boss and with people that you're working with, and I think they should respect that. If they don't, then probably not meant to be working there. But I think, back then I kind of didn't really say no. It was really tricky, and that's just the honest truth. I kind of just did the work.
And so do you see a sort of cultural shift now with record labels, with companies being more supportive towards their staff?
Yeah, I mean, from like our company is very supportive of these types of things. We openly talk about these things. We're working to improve this internally and help externally, as you know. I do see a shift. I see that people are talking more about mental health and your physical being in general. I definitely see a shift. I've seen it more in the past 2 years. I think it's really, really great. I hope that we don't have to have more deaths to, be able to discuss it more. But I think it's really, really great that it's becoming more destigmatized and that people are openly talking about it. I've definitely seen a shift, I would say, more in the past 2 years, yeah.
That's really positive. So people are talking about it more and it's becoming more accepted.
Yeah, definitely. That's from and I see that from being in I feel like the US and also Europe. I see it as being a global shift.
That's very positive and great to hear. Joey, perhaps we could come to yourself. You're an artist that has seemingly lived the dream. You've had releases on Beatport and you've toured the world. You've played events like Tomorrowland and Creamfields and lived a life that many people could only dream of. But I think, am I right in saying in 2015, you had what you describe as burnout?
Yeah, 2015, 2014, 2015.
2014, 2015, and you got to a point where you decided that for your own health it was time to pull back, and you've since refocused to actually using your experience to help other artists that are up and coming with what you learned and the process you went through. Could you share with the audience some of the sort of issues that artists come to you with, and also some of the advice that you give to them?
Yeah, sure. Most of the time when artists come to me, sometimes it's like a starting artist who still has to build his career and is experiencing an overload of work, like comparable on the work floor, like they don't know how to deal with all the work that has to be done to become successful, because let's be honest, it takes a lot of work and time. So they kind of get stuck with that. And on the other hand, I have the producers who already have the success, but they struggle with different kind of things. Most of the time, the more mental stuff. So they feel unhappy, but they don't know why. They struggle with communications with their team or with their family or with their friends. Most of the time, it's all about, it circles around unhappiness. Like they just feel unhappy, but they can't put their finger on the reason why, because they seem to have the perfect life, right? From the outside, it's the perfect life, traveling, making all that money, having all the attention you need, while deep inside they're unhappy. And that's what I've experienced as well. So even the external perception that a lot of people have of artists on social media, where they're living this amazing life, it's really exciting. Even artists themselves that are living that life are going, hang on a second, my life looks really good, but I'm unhappy. What's going on? Yeah, well, with social media, you're kind of your own PR agent, as in you want to put an image out there that puts you in a good light, like you don't want to let people show that you feel bad or that you're unhappy, because that you also might feel guilty about it, because you have the perfect life, you make all that money, you have all those things that a lot of people want to have. So you shouldn't, you feel like you can't complain about it. Well, at the same time, I believe you can complain about it because you're an individual and you have the right to feel happy. And everyone has a different version of being happy. And for me, for example, it wasn't the life of a DJ. I found out afterwards.
So the ability to actually talk to other people and say, I'm struggling, I'm not happy, that's really important.
Yeah, well, talking about it is definitely important, and it's, I think in the last couple of years, that definitely helped, as in more and more artists start talking about it. The media, of course, started to write more about it. Conferences like these, well, it's kind of a head topic. So the industry is definitely opening up, and talking is one of the first things you can do, yeah.
How did you intervene yourself? So back in 2014, 2015, you realized that there was something wrong.
Mm-hmm.
How did you intervene?
Well, the thing is, I experienced the same thing as my clients. I was so unhappy, but I didn't know why. And I started to feel guilty because when I was talking with my friends or family, they were all saying like, dude, you're flying the world, you're making that money, blah, 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 blah. But still, that didn't help me. Sorry, what was the question? I kind of forgot it.
So you realized that you weren't happy, and you took an intervention to address that?
Well, after a while I found out that I was really feeling unhappy, but I knew that it wasn't my body. I didn't have injuries, it was from the inside. So the first thing that popped up on my mind was I have to go to a mind doctor, a psychologist. So I went to a psychologist, but the only thing they really helped me with was explaining what panic attacks were, because I was experiencing a lot of panic attacks and I didn't know what that was. So knowing what a panic attack was already helped me, because then you're not like tasting in the dark, like you actually know what it is. So that kind of gives rest. Then I actually went to a coach, to a career coach actually. And I had to do a test, a personal test and a career test. And those two tests actually should match. You should do a job that fits your personality. If you want to work with people, you should work with people. If you're more like a loner, you should work by your own, those kind of things. And the test came back and it couldn't be more crooked, as in everything I was doing with my job were things that I didn't like to do as a person. So that kind of, at that moment, all the pieces of the puzzle came together, because I always felt like an outsider in the industry and I didn't really understand why. I always felt like I was doing things differently from other people. I wasn't that much for all the partying and stuff, and I skipped all the after parties, and I wanted to go back home as soon as possible, the first flight possible. If I have to skip the hotel or whatever, it didn't matter. I want to go home as quick as possible. I just never connected the dots why. And that's because I don't like to be away from home that much. But if you're an artist and things are going well, you're actually away from home a lot. So all those things were happening, I just couldn't connect the dots. And at that moment when that test came back, the whole puzzle came together, and I was like, wow. Okay, it was like a mind-blown moment. It's like, okay, now I get why I feel like how I feel. And that was the moment also when I decided to quit, because it just wasn't something I could maintain doing.
So having intervened and assessed your career, you stepped back, you've reorientated your career, and you're in a much happier position now.
Yeah, definitely. It took me a couple of years, but now, like 5 years later, kind of 5 years later, I started working at a factory to kind of level with society again, because I felt like I was completely disconnected with the normal world.
So you went from playing like main stage at Tomorrowland and Creamfields to working in a factory?
Yeah, 4 days a week, yeah.
That's quite a shift.
Well, to be really honest, it was a big war with my ego.
Right.
Because you're used to certain things, right? You're used to get picked up at the airport. Like today, I was actually talking with my friend. Like, it's so fun that you get used to this, like getting picked up at the airport. While when you're going on a holiday, you're arriving at like, fuck, there's no one here to pick me up. I have to arrange my things. So stupid, small little things, but you're getting used to it. And that's a long process, and it's a big fight with your ego. It's a big fight with yourself, and that takes a lot of time.
So that's a really nice point to sort of pick up on that, the need to maintain reality, to check in with what you're doing, make sure that you're actually happy doing what you're doing and it's the right fit for you. I think that really leads nicely onto Timo actually, and we could talk a little bit about yourself there. So you're an artist that's had a prolific career, You're a veteran artist within our business now. You've seen every different side of it, travelled the world, played every club, played with every artist, and you've seen it from all of those different angles. It must be hard to stay grounded within that process. What's your journey been like? What's your journey been like? So from somebody that's had a meteoric rise, a huge career, but also a career of over 30 years now, to yourself today. Can you just talk us through that process?
I mean, I start with the best thing first. It's great that now there's a platform to talk about it. I hear you very much, because I mean, similar experiences I've done like in different passes of my way. I was talking with Frank before we started here also, and it's like when, let's say, the big breakthrough came in the late 90s with my career, I always said to my friends, they said, how do you handle that? You know, it's like, you know, the Nike, you know, private jets and all that shit. How do you handle that? You know, isn't that great? I said, you know, it's like there is no school to learn that. Now there is coaching, but we didn't have coaching in the times. You know, it was like I was basically pushed into the cold water, and either you can swim or you can't. And if you are too weak, you're out. I mean, was one of the things that you mentioned, and it was coming to my mind. If you were too weak back in the days, you didn't have the mental strength to do that, or support, or help yourself basically. How to handle the whole situation. You were too weak, you were out. There were enough, you know, they wanted to take your position basically. So it was a weird situation, and there was not much help. And also not from the management, I really have to say. Also in the early years, it was like, you know, it was maximum income that was much more important than really the issues of like the artist, you know.
So the management weren't looking at the sustainable career of the artist and the long-term future. They just wanted to make money there and then.
It was a business model, but it was not like, you know, the basis of the business model. The artist, the individual, was not, you know, didn't have like the attention, maybe even purposely, that in the end of the day, with such a hard life, and it's a great life, I can tell you, but it's a fucking hard life, that it needs the person. I know very well.
And in the fact that there was no support, how did you support yourself through that?
Say again, please.
Because there was no outside support, how did you support yourself through that?
I had many struggles. I mean, I could possibly talk for hours here, really, because I've gone through every kind of like level of that. You know, it was, what is the real world was one of the things too. I was like, in the best years, I was like, I don't know how much you were traveling, but I was traveling good 300 days a year. And then what is the reality of life? What is this, come back to the real world? But excuse me, I mean, 80% of my real world is that shit I'm doing. Oh, shit, I love it, yeah? But is that what I'm doing there? I'm traveling, I'm exactly that. There's always a driver, there's always someone, this and that. You know, everyone's like basically licking your ass to get your attention and get a little bit of the limelight. But in the end of the day, in the early years, no one really cared. And I really appreciate that over the years, more and more, you know, there's more attention coming also from, I mean, this is 20 years ago when the whole shit was blowing up. Nowadays, it's like, Frank is a good example for a modern manager who's taking care of his artist, because he, you know, it's the center of the business. You have to take care of the person. If the person has issues, you have to take care of this. This is part of your role. But back in the days, it was all about business. I was making fuckloads of money. I was everywhere. I remember it was like 6 years. I was never flying business class, only first class. I had like everything, and I felt so fucking empty, and I never knew what it is. And quite some years ago, I realized then, you know, I have issues. I have like, you know, I don't have. You know, I don't have the whole thing under control anymore. You know, it's like I don't want to be a product. I was getting treated as a product, not as an individual person, which I suffered very much from too. So I was for years under antidepressiva, and I was. It basically made me more numb. Yeah, cut off like the low end and the high end, but it didn't really solve the problem. And I mean, sorting out my life definitely. In the last years was like this, you know, I got control of my life back. But back in the days, it was all important about money. It was no one gave a fuck. And I'm so happy to hear about this, about coaching. I'm so happy to hear also your thing, Tristan, what you are doing. And I mean, we know each other now a little bit, but that you're so like so much pushing like the issue forward and making it more visible, and also especially for the younger artists here, the awareness is important. It all looks great from the outside, but to do this job is something. It's 24/7. It never ends. It's you know, you're always on duty, and you have to be quite a strong person mentally to handle all that thing. And if you cannot handle it, ask for help. I didn't ask for help because I didn't know what's wrong with me. I remember that. I felt like I had a belt around my chest for quite some years. My pocket was full of cash. It wasn't that. I thought it's that because I come from a really poor family. I thought it's cash is what I want, you know, wealth, freedom, etc. But it wasn't that. It was something completely differently. I needed years to figure that out.
That's interesting that both yourself and Joey had the same problem where you weren't sure what the problem was. You felt there was a problem inside, but you just weren't sure what it was, and that it took some time to actually work out what that particular issue was. It sounds like the answer is probably no, but could you have seen yourself saying what you're saying today 20 years ago in a public forum like this?
No, because I wasn't aware. I was scared that I wasn't confident enough, I wasn't aware. And also, I mean, with like 20 years more of experience in this business in any kind of like way, if it's record business or just the DJ life or whatever that is, you know, it's like now I'm a lot more pragmatic, I'm a lot more like relaxed about it. I know, I'm very aware this is show business. It's show and it's business. And there's a private life also. And the work-life balance, that now there is a work-life balance, let's say it like that. I didn't have a work-life balance. I was working my ass off until I was just flat on the floor, and my former managers, they were just kicking my ass and said, hey, there's another 25K, let's go and get this. You know, not let's go and get it, you have to go and get this. It wasn't let's go and get this. It was pressure and was not support. And I know exactly what will never happen to me again or anyone I'm taking care of.
So Timo, that's a really nice point you sort of touched on there about the need for good management and what a big difference that can make. Frank, again, you are an industry veteran with experience from the artist side, from the label side, right the way through to management. Timo just touched on the point there of the necessity for great management. Can you share a little bit about what you see as being the necessary skills of a manager to help their artists?
Yeah, we have two kinds of management artists. We have some, they are big already, so they are touring like Timo, like 300 days a year, and we have some we build from scratch. And if we build them from scratch, we tell them from the first day how to handle these mental issues, or how to handle their life or their fitness or everything. We always try to tell them like do sports, have like routines every day, have like contacts to your families and friends, don't work like for 18 or 19 hours a day. Some of them, they are like really like they understand what we say, and some of them they don't want to understand because they say, hey, no, but this is my time now, and I want to have success, or I want to work, and I want to do sports, and I don't need family, and I don't need friends. But this is the beginning of the end, because if you're in this loop, it's like traveling, then touring, gigs, producing, interviews, promotion, label, everything. If you don't have routines, then you will have exactly the problems they talked about. And we have this with bigger artists. We had this with bigger artists like that. They had like burnouts during the peak season, like in summer, when you like do like, I don't know, 150 gigs in 3 months, like 3 gigs a day. And for this case, sometimes we pull the plug. So we cancel gigs. And then it's interesting, when Avicii died, everyone was saying, oh, we knew it, because he had such bad management, and the people around him, they were so greedy, and they only want to have his money, blah, blah, blah. Then we canceled gigs because one of our artists was ill, and we talked to the promoter that, hey, he can't play your club day.
"You are such an asshole. You will never play again in my club. This is ridiculous. I don't see this blah blah." I said, "Hey, last week you cried about Avicii, and now you tell the same shit." I said, "Are you right? Oh, okay." And then it's like this behavior is not only from the artist side or from the management side, it's the whole industry, because everyone is like earns money with that. Everyone wants to earn money, and if a big artist is not able to play, it's a big loss also for the promoter. But they have to understand that they need the artists to run their clubs. So if they kill all them because of not taking care of their health, this won't work. And he understood. The promoter understood, and he said, "Okay, then I understand your point, and I apologize now."
Is that an isolated case with the promoter, or is that common?
No, it's common.
So even just years after Avicii's death, where we've had all of this publicity, we've got promoters who are taking that attitude.
Yeah, of course.
So what do you think?
Weakness is uncool. When I can say I was in the hospital, I was in the hospital about 14 months, nearly died on a sepsis. I did a post on Instagram, just, "Hey guys, I'm in the hospital, I'm going to be out for a few weeks, but I'm taking care of myself, and I hope to be back soon." And there was a whole bunch of promoters, actually, in this 14 months ago, a whole bunch of promoters that canceled shows, and a whole bunch of promoters that didn't book me anymore. Now he's weak, he's sick, he's not gonna, it's like weakness is not cool.
Yeah, because they said, "Oh, he's unreliable."
Yeah, exactly.
We
That's
can't
what
count on him.
Yeah. And I mean, it's normal. We all have, at some point, we have issues. And I mean, part of our life is, fortunately, more unfortunately, it's like, we have a life, people can follow us, Instagram, blah, 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 blah. But the reaction, weakness is not cool. Weakness, my former agent, he told me also, "Hey, you can't post something like that." It's like that, backlash, immediately back, you don't get bookings anymore. I was like, what the fuck? It's 14 months ago. It's not like 20 years ago. It's still there. It's completely still there. It's an attitude that's there. If you're not strong enough, fuck it.
But still, Frank, despite that, you're of the mind you will take your artist out of performing if you don't feel that it's in their best interest.
Yes, and the biggest enemy in doing this decision is the artist. Because we see from the outside, we see, okay, he's struggling, it's too much, so we have to cancel some shows, or we have to cancel a whole month or something. And then the artist, "Oh no, you can't do it, I need the money, I want to tour at home, I get like mind sick." And we said, "But it's not good for you if you do now too much." And then you have to fight with your own artist to do the best for him.
So you're looking after the artist. Who's looking after you?
After me.
Who looks after the managers?
Hey, you have a job for me?
Who looks after the mind doctor? And no one looks.
So if you're a psychologist, the mind doctor, then you will be in therapy yourself. So you have a supervisor, and you have to go to regular supervision. So within a clinical setting, you have supervision, and you're able to go and decompress when you've seen so many patients and you've heard these stories. You can decompress. But for managers,
no, there's nothing. So I think if you want to be a successful manager, you have to be a really strong person, because you have to fight every day with everyone.
But when we say strong, what do we mean by strong? Because
it's mentally strong.
But also strength is also doing a panel like the four of you are doing today, Joey.
No, I just wanted to add something, because I already had some managers coming to me, or together with their artist, or just apart from each other, because they were both struggling, or there was an issue between the two, or whatever. But there are some managers who are already looking up for like coaching for themselves, because they are struggling with things as well. So it's not like it's just for artists or whatever.
Yeah, I was going to say also there's, and I'm happy to share them, there's, as a company at Beatport, we are definitely doing the research and speaking with different companies that focus on coming into the company, and also working with executives, managers, agents on helping them in these types of situations. So I'm happy to give you that information as well. I feel like there's 3 or 4 really great companies and then individual coaches that are focusing on this. And I think it's really important to, also, like you said, take the time to ask managers too, like, are they doing okay? But there definitely are people. But yeah, hopefully by doing things like this as well, we can bring things out more, discuss it more, and then inspire more people to also help and be coaches as well.
Yeah. So if you would need some help as management, we have like access to mental coaches, because we have mental coaches for the artists if they need some. So we could also use them. But from myself, I've never seen this issue.
So, hello. Right. So we obviously see artists who go on social media, and the response has actually been very positive. When artists have pulled tours or said, actually, I need some time out, you really see the fans get behind them, which is fantastic. And there's a shift now where artists have come back and said, I'm not going to tour because I need some time out, which is very positive. And social media obviously gives us a lot of really great benefits as well. And this is an open question to the panel, what's the darker side of social media? Is there a darker side?
Of course. Because we always talk about what's real life, and if you're an artist, you believe in social media. You get your feedback from social media, and if the feedback is bad, you feel bad. If you're a weak person, if you can't filter the hater comments from the real supporter comments, and I think that's a bad side. If you're struggling and you only read the bad comments, then I think it won't help your mental health. And I think this is one of the dark sides, to put too much attention to this social media stuff.
Yeah, I definitely agree with that. I think there is this kind of standard you feel like you have to hit as well, like I have to have this many followers, this many likes, and it's kind of like this validation from society. But I also feel that a big problem too is that's why I feel like it's tricky with social media, because coming from the agency world and just knowing how also brands look at artists to get endorsement deals and things like this, they actually, like promoters and brands and other big companies will look to see what your social media numbers are. So they are part of it. Like it's all part of the problem. It comes from that end as well. If you have to have over 500k likes or 500 followers to get a booking at this club, or this person's not really good enough, he or she only has 5,000 likes, and it's like, so the artists kind of feel like they have to hit a certain standard in order to get booked. So that also needs to change. I think that you can be an incredible artist. Some of the best artists I feel like I like are, not that big on socials, and they play the best, amazing festivals and amazing gigs, and they're definitely under the hundreds of thousands. And I like that they've kind of stood their ground and are doing what they want to do, making the music they want to make, and then get discovered in a way because the music is really good and it's about the music, not the numbers. So I do also think it would be great if promoters as well and people, on the brand side of things weren't always looking at those numbers. But I think that puts a lot of pressures on artists to, have these numbers and be this person that they're probably not at all.
Right. So and there's that difference between perception, how a person appears to be doing, and actually how they are inside. And both Timo and Joey sort of touched on that point. How it looks from the outside and how it actually feels to be the artist is 2 quite different things.
Yeah, I think with social media, what fuels it, and that's what I experienced, and a lot of other big artists that are quitting right now or having mental issues. The thing is, you're creating a second personality, literally, like you're creating an artist within yourself. And on social media, you're constantly feeding the other person, like you're completely forgetting about yourself. You're only thinking and reacting about from the perspective of the artist's perspective. So with me, you have Joey Lelyveld, which I'm personally, my private life, and you have JoeySuki. And when you're on social media, you're living the life of JoeySuki. You're responding from JoeySuki. It's like you're a split personality. And the problem is that with an artist, the bigger you get, the more time you start to put in and start to live as the artist. So it's hard to find that balance, like who am I at which moment? So the real life, like who am I at which moment? When do I have to act as my private life? And when, when can I shut off? And with social media, you're constantly in your artist life. So I think that for an artist, that's the killing one, as in you're literally getting lost. Like you're literally getting disconnected with yourself because you're becoming someone else.
And what advice do you give to your artists in how they should handle social media?
Actually, with everything, all the problems that we're discussing here, and not just here, but in whole society, it all starts with education. Like the problem we face right now is we know how our body works. We know we have blood inside us. We know we have a heart. We know we have to eat healthy. We know we have to work out. That's what we learn at school. What we don't know is how this little thing works. And this is the remote control. So we do know we do know how the TV works, but we don't know how the remote control works. Doesn't make sense. And the more you get to know about yourself, like your brain and how you work from the inside, why you think what you think, and asking yourself questions that go to a deeper level instead of just keeping it on the surface, right? That's what I do as a coach, but you can also do it for yourself. And luckily, there's a lot of stuff happening these days in society online, which really help with that. But I think that's the solution for everything. Like finding out how you work from the inside, from yourself, because then you become mentally fit, a stronger person. Then you can deal with those negative comments. Then you can deal with someone telling you that your track sucks, or someone telling you that your gig sucked, or whatever it is. You create some sort of harness between you and all the negative stuff out there, and you know how to deal with it. And I think that's the key to everything.
That's great advice. And Timo, for yourself, you sort of shot to superstardom in an age where we didn't have social media. What was it like then? What's it like now?
We could party and no one was filming. It was the best. That's great.
No evidence.
No, I mean, it's like, of course, I literally come from a different generation. I started DJing in '82, and that's nearly 40 years now. And, I come from, a time of life where DJs were not even cool, and traveling DJs, the whole thing was not happening. But back in the days, it was 100% about the music. And nowadays, it's, the music, of course, plays a role, is, let's say, the key card for the whole thing. But when you're in, it's I think the most important thing is, I guess you agree, is like, what kind of image, you create with the artist, with the artistical profile. It's like what you say. It's like I struggle. I don't like it too much. I don't like the social media part too much. I also use it, of course. I feed it daily. I do it myself to have a better control. At least that it reflects at least a part of myself. It's an image. It's also an image, what you said, that I create, but I always try I was just reflecting while you were talking. I wouldn't say there's two personalities, but I wouldn't show everything about myself really on social media. Nowadays, what is the music really? 15-20% is music in the whole thing. Everything else is an image. It's something that you can purposely create, that also gets created. This is business models, as we know. And sometimes I struggle because I love music so much, and for me music is the key. This is the reason why I'm also sitting here. This is the reason why I do my profession, because I love music. I love to create music. I love to take people on a journey in my DJ sets, etc., etc. I can only agree to what everyone says. I have all my positive and negative moments. I wish we had a discussion about them. I wish I would have had coaches and coaching 20 years ago when I needed it. I would probably be in a different state of my life. I wouldn't have done possibly I didn't do many drugs, but I was doing quite a lot of drugs in the early 2000s too, combined with the whole thing. 300 days traveling. Every year, it's like, guys, do that. I don't know if anyone here, you know it. You know it, but it's fucking hardcore. It's like you open the window, open the curtain in the hotel, you have no fucking clue where you are. I mean, I know this all. I wish I would have had like the possibility and the platform to talk back in the days. I now have. That helps a lot. I mean, I would say like the main, there's always, we are all freaks, we all have issues, of course. But it's like the main issues are under control these days, and I'm very happy that, you know, it's a possibility for everyone nowadays to, first of all, talk about it, which is the most important thing when you have issues. And second, there is always, nowadays, there's help. Back in the days, there was no help. You were just like, how do we say in German? Die Sau, die durchs Dorf getrieben wird. Yeah? Basically, you know, it's just maximum income. This is the most important thing. Oh, you have issues? Oh, well, dude, you have issues. Yeah, you have to work on that. You know, yeah, but make the money. I'm happy these times are over.
So times have shifted on, and Frank, you've already sort of touched on that you're very mindful of your artists, and you will pull them out of gigs if needs be. When they're touring and travelling, we all have to travel a lot often, and a lot of people here will be doing a lot of travel, whether they're working at a record label or they're an artist. How do you advise your artists to manage the travelling side of things, where they're away from home for long periods of time?
Especially when it comes to like overseas bookings, when you also have like jet lag and everything. We have doctors in our team, so and they give advices. They okay, when you arrive in America, don't go to bed, don't eat, go to the gym, do like a bit of cardio, and then go to sleep. And these are like small advices. Same with drugs and alcohol. We always say, whenever it comes to the point, if you need to do it when you don't have to travel, because otherwise you will miss your flight or you will fail doing your bookings and everything, and it leads to bigger problems. And you need more drugs and more alcohol to cope this crisis. Yeah. And the initial question was.
So what advice do you give to your artists who are touring? So how to manage the time, the delays, the loneliness, or because they're often on their own for long periods of time.
That's a major point. Never travel alone. Never. You need a contact person, which are you really familiar with, a friend. Most of the times, the tour managers are getting friends.
I called them mood manager.
Yeah.
Guys back in the days, it was my mood manager.
Yeah. So because this relation is so close because you're traveling every day, and the tour manager also needs to be a strong person. If the tour manager is a weak person, this will like, what do you say? This will go to the artist.
Reflects back.
They will be weak together, and that's the worst case. You need a person which travels with you, which knows you, which understands you, which understands your issues. And if you travel alone, that won't work. You will get depressive after 2 weeks, I guess.
So that's really good advice. So if you are going and touring and you're going to spend a long time on the road, have good people with you. And I think Martin Garrix often takes his friends with him when he's going overseas. Joey?
I just want to, from my own experience, like one of the problems with that was that especially in the start of your career, once the first international bookings come in, the financial part doesn't match the fact that you have to bring someone. So you probably don't have the money to bring an extra person, and the promoter is definitely not going to pay for it. So the problem with that is that in the time where you're kind of the most vulnerable, financially wise, it's almost impossible to take someone with you unless you are willing to reinvest all your revenue, which no one really doesn't want to do, or isn't possible to do because they have to pay bills.
That's a good thing if you have management like us. So we spend the money and travel with our artists.
Oh yeah, that's a good thing. Yeah, that's like an investment from the management side.
Yeah, that's a big investment. In Germany, we say, "Don't kill the cow. You want to have milk off every day," and that's a point. Yeah. It sounds a bit rude, okay.
So if you're an artist and your manager tries to milk you, it's more. So we're clear on that. Timo, again, you've toured extensively around the world. What were your sort of strategies for dealing with that? You've toured extensively around the world. What were your strategies? Did you bring friends with you, or did you have friends in different locations that you'd see?
When my career was like exploding, I would say it was around the 99, 2000, I realized for myself that I didn't need anyone to carry my record box. I had vinyls back in the days. To to carry my record box or anything like that. What I just said as a joke, but it's a reality. I didn't need a tour manager. I needed a mood manager. I remember those shows, like big shows, Greenfields or anything like that, especially when Azido the Bass was breaking through in 2000. You have like 15, 20,000 people going completely bananas, completely crazy. And like 1 hour later, you're in the hotel room alone. Yeah?
Full of adrenaline.
Full of adrenaline, and then also because you know what to do. We started doing like the after parties in the hotel because I didn't want to be alone. And I was fortunate enough to that a very good friend at the time was like saying yes when I asked him, because very strong character, was saying yes when I asked him, hey, on this extensive tours in South America, North America, I need a mood manager. I need someone who exactly does what Frank was saying, who just like, you know, covers me, backs me up, and is a strong personality, which I had then for 5 years. I was working with, nowadays he's a artist from, a big artist from himself, Loco Dice. You know. This is, so we have pretty much a very good history together. And until today I can say there was never a person closer to me, even not my ex-wife. There was never a person closer to me than him, because it was such an intense time, and no matter what happened after, but this time I'm thankful that I had him, because I don't know where it would have ended, because it was too extreme, far too extreme.
So regardless of what you're doing, have good people around you, keep yourself grounded. Right.
But it's what you said. It's, you know, it's when you are not a top league artist and the budget doesn't pay for it, basically. It can be tricky, you know. It can. It's you know.
It's one of the problems from my clients. Like I tell them, like bring someone with you, but yeah, it's a financial. It's a financial thing. Yeah.
I know who, but
yeah.
you know, I can't afford it.
Yeah, exactly.
Simple as that.
And that's why I'm so into the whole educational thing, as in all the things like bringing someone with you, or like whatever you do, it's all putting band-aids on a wound, and you want to know how to prevent the wound. That's the way how I see it. But yeah, there's a lot of ways to put band-aids on it, of course, like bringing someone with you, but I really like to take the problem and try to prevent the wound. That's how I see it.
Prevention being much better than cure.
Yeah, and that's where education starts for me.
And how do you guys all deal with sleep, right? Because this is often a thing for me. Today I didn't sleep very well. I have chronic anxiety as well, so it's like, great, haven't slept, we're going to stand on stage and talk to a load of people. Brilliant. And that can make you feel very anxious, and it can be quite a difficult thing, especially when you're keeping strange hours. You know, we're all working in nightclubs, or we're going to parties, we're networking, we're going to these things that are really bad for your sleep patterns. How do you all handle that side of things?
Well, with when I was touring, I was having a lot of trouble with this, because as Timo mentioned, after a gig you're full of adrenaline, and sometimes your flight is like 4 or 5 hours after the gig, so you're trying to get in 2 or 3 hours of sleep, which really doesn't work, because you're just in bed like staring at the ceiling. And then you're getting in the plane. I'm a pretty long guy, so sleeping in the plane doesn't really work. So it's sleeping on tour always has been a problem for me. But now that I have a more regular life, it's like I just see my bed and passed out. Yeah.
Good sleep,
yeah.
Yeah, well, I mean, as a family father, or at least as a father of 2 daughters, it's like, you know, I know the issues on the weekend. I'm not really sleeping. I'm one of those person liking my bed at home a lot better, and I like to be tired at home much more than be tired on some airports. And then in the week time, I also have to get my ass at 6 out of the bed to bring my kid to school or anything like that. And I'm getting older. I don't need so much sleep anymore. On one side, I don't drink anymore. I don't drink alcohol anymore since like, how long is it? 2 years now? About 2 years, yeah. 2 years, I don't drink anymore, because the morning without a hangover is so much better than having more, yeah. And somehow, I mean, not everything is perfect. Somehow it's a certain price you have to pay to do what you love. And this is possibly one of the prices. Sleep patterns are shit, but also, I mean, I know when I'm on the plane later, on the plane back to Hanover, I'm going to pass out for half an hour. I learned it, and it's actually quite relaxing. I learned it to just, like, you know, let myself go, and I'm in myself. I'm, you know, relaxed enough that I can do it. Everyone handles it differently. I mean, I still work at night. I hate this sets from like 6 to 10 in the morning. Just, fuck me, man, my age. But I love it. I absolutely love it, and not everything is perfect. I can have it.
So, Farah, I see you at lots of different conferences around the world.
Yeah.
We're very fortunate to get to do a lot of travel and go to really interesting places. How do you cope when you're doing that side of things? So you're not DJing, but you're going through a very similar pattern. You're often flying to different time zones. You're staying in strange places in different hotels. What sort of routine do you use to try and keep your well-being and balance?
Yeah, I would say that I definitely have been probably traveling more in the past couple of years. Like I definitely went through phases of my career where I was traveling a lot and not. I would definitely say I found so much more balance in 2019, which was really, really great. I basically just opted for, instead of going at 80, for example, we had so many events at Beatport, and it was such a success for us as a team, and we all helped each other out and covered different events here and there, and I just honestly chose to sleep like 8 hours a night if I could, instead of seeing friends, ex-colleagues, or going out. And I felt, when I came back, I felt pretty happy, pretty fulfilled, well-rested. I just think it's important. Personally for me, sleep has always been important, so I'll normally always pick that over anything, but definitely routine-wise, I just make sure that I, am taking the time for myself, even at a conference, even if it's just getting an hour by myself somewhere, making sure I do get sleep. If it is going to be a conference where we're doing so many things at once, I want to be on point. I'm not going to be drinking as much. I just want to make sure that I'm on point for the rest of the team. And I've implemented meditation in the past 6 months, more than I ever have, and I think that's been really, really, really helpful. It really keeps me grounded, and also just having good communication with people I care about, friends and families. If I am going through something, I know I can, even if I'm at a conference or something, I know I can just say, I can just chat with them, or just know you have that support system. I think it's really important.
That's really great advice. And for the three of you, there are also a few hints and tips that you could quickly share as we move into the last 5 minutes of the panel that the audience can take away and use in their own lives to give themselves a better sense of well-being.
Start to dig deeper into yourself, and it might sound a bit like witchcraft and a bit like woo-ha, but it's really important to know how everything inside yourself works, understanding your own mind, understanding your own thoughts. To me, that has been the biggest change in my life, and I'm really grateful that the burnout happened to me, because now I have all that knowledge, and I'm definitely 100% sure that it's going to help me on all aspects in my life. So that's something I would recommend everyone to do.
Great advice, Tim.
I would say I take my business extremely serious. As I say, it's show and business, but I don't take myself very serious. It's like, I can laugh problems away. I'm surrounded by very good people who are, most important, super honest to me, and who also catch me when I'm falling, which is important. I didn't have this over the time. I even had bad experience inside the family, which is usually the holy grail, basically. You think your family is the backing, but it wasn't. And nowadays, I think I'm old and pragmatic, if not enough to handle this. As I say, I don't take myself too serious. When there's too many problems or too many issues, or I feel like anxiety coming up, or so, I'm surrounded by very good people, and I have learned to handle and talk about these issues before I just carry issues around with me. So it's if I have something, I communicate it immediately.
Surround yourself with good people and talk about it.
Yeah.
Frank?
I can only agree with those two. Be reflective with yourself and be surrounded by good people. I think that's a perfect setup. Then you need nothing else.
Real people.
Real people, yes. Not the false friends like.
Yeah, you have so many. We know these.
You're the greatest guy. You like my music, I love it. Because no, I don't like it. Ah, so you don't like it? Ah, yeah, me too. I don't like it. I like it. Yes, I like it. Yeah. So surround yourself with real people.
That's great advice. We've got time for a couple of questions. Did anybody have a gentleman over there? Do we have a microphone?
I think I can do it like that. You told about the second artist that you feed, which becomes second personality. Do you think you can actually go out and become famous as you? Like not build a second personality, but actually be yourself and get big?
Oh, no. I actually believe that you do, as in everyone's unique on this planet, and showing your personality, the more true it is, the more real it is, the more people will like it. Because when something's fake, eventually people will see it and people will push through it, you know. So the more realistic you are with yourself and the more true you are with yourself, with your content and everything that you put out, that's something you can do to eternity, right? That's not something you have to change because it's you. So yeah, I definitely think you can, yeah.
Right question. Anyone else? Any more for anyone? Yes, sir.
I'm relating to the question before. If you try to be real as an artist, be authentic and everything and honest, doesn't it make you like angreifbaar of English?
Vulnerable.
For more critique and that it hits you harder? You know what I mean?
Yeah, it depends on how strong you are. As in, yes, you become more vulnerable, but the less secrets you have, the less people will have on you. So I always say, like, if there's anything that that you have to say, like, just put it out there, because then they can't use it against you. And when you get critique, like, you can't do anything about the fact how you are or who you are, right? So if someone gives you feedback on how you are, it's like, that's their opinion. Like, yeah, it's just you have to know how to deal with that critique, and that's where the big struggle is for most artists. Like, dealing with other people's opinions, if it's about your track or about your cat that you're posting on Instagram, dealing with other people's opinions is the big struggle for artists.
Yeah,
man muss sich nicht jeden Schuh anziehen, der einem dahingestellt wird. Das habe ich auch gelernt über die Jahre. A little bit of egoism is quite a healthy thing sometimes. Exactly what you say. It's like, you know, when you are this way, you know, and you're a strong kind of real character, you know, this is the way you are. And if someone, you know, doesn't like it or wants to criticize, fair enough. You know, you just don't have to take that. If they have a problem, it's their problem, not yours.
Yeah, and creating like a fake artist like profile around you is just like making up for all the things that you're ashamed of most of the time. So there's a lot of fear behind all the things that most artists do, because they're afraid of other people's opinions, they're afraid of getting hurt, they're afraid of getting revealed that he's actually not making his music himself, or whatever that's happening. There's a lot of fear behind all the things that a person is doing. It's just that all those problems, challenges, it's not on the surface, it's on a deeper layer within the person himself.
I was going to say, and most people actually genuinely will connect with you because you're being more authentic, and that's so much more important. And at the end of the day, this is an industry that we want to preserve with good people and really take care of each other. So I think if you feel like you are being, weak in certain moments or showing too much of yourself, I think actually that shows a lot of strength, and people want to see that more. So I think genuinely people want to see more authenticity, and that's why we're kind of sitting here having these discussions, so that these topics get more destigmatized and we can kind of help each other.
That's a great point on which to leave this. And we hope that you've enjoyed this. Thank you all very much for coming today. I'd like you to join me in thanking the panelists for their time today. Thank you.